Florida real estate did not experience a typical downturn, it malfunctioned. In a healthy housing market, prices fall until buyers step in and transactions resume. That is how markets clear. In Florida, prices are falling, but buyers are still not buying. The issue is no longer figuring out the right price. The issue is that transactions cannot happen at all. Today, we're counting down 10 Florida cities where homes have sat on the market for more than 6 months without selling. Not because sellers refuse to negotiate, but because insurance has made mortgages impossible to qualify for. This is what happens when the underlying mechanics of a market stop working.
Number 10. Cape Coral. Sellers in Cape Coral entered 2025 believing waterfront homes would still command a premium, even as the broader market softened. Canal access had always been the city's defining advantage. Boat lifts, sunset views, and waterfront living fueled Cape Coral's growth from about 40,000 residents to more than 200,000. One homeowner listed a canal-front property in February for $385,000, a price supported by comparable sales from 2023. The home was updated, well-maintained, and equipped with impact windows and a metal roof installed after Hurricane Ian. On paper, it checked every box. It should have been sold. Showings came quickly. Buyers toured the property, showed interest, and arrived with mortgage pre-approval. Weeks passed with no offers. The seller reduced the price to $365,000, then to $345,000. Still nothing. A clear pattern emerged. Every potential deal collapsed at the same stage: insurance. Buyers were receiving insurance quotes between $18,000 and $26,000 per year for canal properties. Even buyers with strong finances could not meet lender debt-to-income requirements once insurance was added. Insurance costs alone pushed the total housing expense to levels comparable to buying a $600,000 home, even though the sale price was in the mid-$300,000 range. More price cuts followed. By early summer, the listing dropped to $325,000. By September, it hit $299,000. That was an $86,000 reduction, more than 26% off the original asking price. Days on the market passed 180, still no viable offers. The listing agent tried incentives, including offering to pay for a year of insurance. That produced one offer, but it required the seller to cover 2 years of insurance at a cost exceeding $36,000. Accepting would have resulted in a 6-figure loss. The seller declined. Cape Coral sellers are learning that canal frontage, once their most valuable feature, has become their biggest liability. Lower prices do not solve insurance unavailability. Buyers who want these homes cannot qualify. Buyers who can qualify refuse to accept 5-figure annual insurance premiums. The canal did not just lose its premium, it eliminated marketability.
Number 9. Panama City. Panama City sellers believed that 6 years after Hurricane Michael, the market would normalize. Homes had been rebuilt to modern codes with impact resistance, stronger roofs, and updated construction standards that should have lowered risk. Instead, sellers discovered that Hurricane Michael created permanent stigma. One rebuilt home listed in January for $250,000, a reasonable price for a 3-bedroom home rebuilt to 2019 code. The house was objectively better than it had been before the storm. Showings came quickly, buyers toured, asked questions, and expressed interest. Every deal died at the same point: insurance. Buyers were receiving quotes between $12,000 and $18,000 annually. Despite the home being stronger than pre-storm construction, underwriting models treated Panama City as permanently high risk. Years without another major storm did not matter. Michael became the data point used to justify premiums indefinitely. The seller cut the price to $235,000, then to $220,000. Showings returned, offers did not. Buyers who could afford the mortgage still failed debt-to-income thresholds once insurance was included. One offer arrived at $190,000 with requests for closing costs and insurance credits. Net proceeds would have been around $175,000 on a home rebuilt for roughly $230,000. Accepting meant locking in a loss exceeding $50,000. The seller declined. By late summer, the home remained unsold after 180 days, listed below $190,000. That was more than 24% off the original price. Interest came only from cash investors looking for distressed properties, not owner-occupants who needed insurance and financing. Panama City sellers are learning the difference between physical recovery and market recovery. Homes were rebuilt, neighborhoods improved, insurance models never forgave Hurricane Michael. The storm ended years ago, the stigma did not. Number 8. Port St. Lucie. Port St. Lucie grew on the strength of first-time buyers. Starter homes in the mid-$200,000 range allowed young families to enter the market, build equity, and eventually move up. That entire system depended on liquidity. Starter homes had to sell. That liquidity vanished in 2024. One seller listed a starter home in March 2025 after accepting a job in Atlanta. Purchased years earlier for $260,000, the home had appreciated during the boom and was listed at $285,000. Historically, that price would have produced a sale within weeks. Showings began immediately. Most visitors were young couples with mortgage pre-approvals and genuine interest. Every deal failed at the same point: insurance. First-time buyers earning around $60,000 per year could qualify for mortgages near $240,000 until insurance quotes arrived. Annual premiums between $8,000 and $12,000 pushed total housing costs beyond lender limits. Buyers did not fail on credit, they failed on math. The seller reduced the price to $265,000, then to $249,000. Nothing changed. Buyers kept touring, lenders kept denying. By June, the seller had relocated to Atlanta, becoming a long-distance owner carrying a vacant house 600 miles away. Summer has passed, days on market crossed 120, utilities remained on, lawn service continued, risk increased. One offer finally came in at $210,000 with requests for closing costs and credits on a home that needed none. Accepting would have erased the seller's equity. They declined. By October, the home remained unsold after more than 200 days. It was listed below $240,000. Still no qualified buyers. The seller faced a brutal choice: continue bleeding money on a vacant house or lock in catastrophic losses just to escape. Port St. Lucie sellers are not overpriced. They are stuck. The first-time buyers who once supported the city's entire housing ladder can no longer qualify once insurance is added. When the entry point disappears, liquidity dies. Starter homes stop being stepping stones and become permanent residences by default. Number 7. Sarasota. Sarasota built its reputation as Florida's refined coastal alternative. Cultured, walkable, affluent, and calm. Not flashy like Miami and not sprawling like Tampa. Homes priced between $400,000 and $600,000 historically sold quickly to retirees and professionals seeking lifestyle rather than speculation. That liquidity vanished in 2024. One seller listed a pristine Sarasota home in March for $575,000. Coastal contemporary design, high-end finishes, walking distance to the beach. Comparable sales from 2023 supported the price. The seller expected offers within 60 days. Showings came immediately. Buyers toured, lingered, and asked questions. Then nothing happened. Insurance was the choke point. Buyers approved for Sarasota price ranges were receiving insurance quotes between $18,000 and $28,000 annually. Once added, total housing costs exceeded what even affluent buyers were willing or able to justify. The seller reduced the price to $535,000, then below $500,000. The cuts barely mattered. The problem was not sensitivity to price, it was the structure of total costs. One offer arrived at $440,000 with requests for closing costs and credits. Accepting would have locked in a six-figure loss on a home purchased only a few years earlier. The seller declined. By early fall, the home sat unsold after 180 days, listed nearly 20% below the original price. Showings continued. Qualified buyers did not. Buyers who could afford Sarasota simply refused to absorb five-figure annual insurance costs when similar lifestyles existed elsewhere for far less.
Sarasota sellers are discovering that upscale markets are not protected. They are exposed. Insurance rises fastest on higher-value coastal homes, shrinking the buyer pool until premium pricing collapses. Affluent buyers did not disappear. They chose other markets.
Number 6. Jacksonville. Jacksonville sellers believed northern geography would shield them. Fewer hurricanes, diversified economy, more affordability. The assumption was that if Miami and Tampa froze, Jacksonville would keep moving. That assumption collapsed. One seller listed a Jacksonville home in January for $315,000, a fair price based on recent comparables. Good schools, proximity to the Naval Air Station, and major employers. Showings came quickly. Offers did not. Insurance quotes between $10,000 and $14,000 annually pushed total housing costs beyond lender limits for median income buyers. Jacksonville was not immune. It was simply slightly cheaper and still unworkable. The military presence worsened the problem. Active duty buyers hesitated to purchase because they feared they would not be able to sell when reassigned. Jacksonville became illiquid. Buyers understood that purchasing meant risking long-distance ownership. The seller reduced it to $295,000, then below $280,000. Nothing changed. One all-cash investor offer arrived at a deep discount. Accepting meant locking in a loss. The seller declined. By summer, the pattern was clear. Owner-occupant buyers had vanished. Only cash transactions were closing, and only at steep discounts. By early fall, the home sat unsold after more than 200 days, listed over 20% below the original price. Northern geography did not preserve liquidity, it accelerated the exit. Number 5. Fort Meyers. Fort Meyers sellers believed surviving Hurricane Ian meant financial survival. They rebuilt. They followed code. They expected a functioning market. Instead, recovery became a liability. One seller listed a rebuilt Fort Meyers home in early 2025 for $395,000. Impact windows, reinforced roof, elevated systems, everything insurers claim to reward. Buyers saw one word: Fort Meyers. Insurance quotes confirmed their fears: $16,000 to $24,000 annually. In some cases, premiums were higher because new construction had higher replacement costs. Showings happened. The interest was real. Every deal died at insurance. Price cuts followed: $375,000, then $350,000, then $325,000. Still nothing. The only offer came from an institutional investor at $275,000. All cash, fast close. The seller had spent $140,000 rebuilding and still owed around $260,000. Accepting meant walking away with almost nothing. They could not accept it, but they also could not hold. They had relocated for work and were paying rent in another state while carrying a vacant property. Mortgage, utilities, and maintenance drained thousands every month. By late summer, desperation replaced hope. The seller accepted a $260,000 cash offer. After closing costs, the net was effectively zero. A home bought for $340,000, $140,000 spent rebuilding, $480,000 invested. Gone. Fort Meyers sellers are learning the harshest lesson of Florida's collapse. Surviving the storm did not save them. Rebuilding did not help. Doing everything right still ended in total financial erasure. This is not a correction. It is punishment without recovery. Number 4. Orlando. Orlando sellers assumed inland geography would protect them. No beachfront exposure, strong tourism and tech employment, and steady population growth. The belief was that if coastal markets struggled, Orlando would remain liquid. That belief proved wrong. One seller listed a 4-bedroom Orlando home in February for $345,000. The price was fair. Good schools, close to major employers. Showings were steady. The interest was real. Offers never came. Every deal failed at insurance. Orlando buyers were not receiving coastal-level premiums, but they did not need to. Quotes between $8,000 and $13,000 annually were enough to break mortgage qualification. Buyers earning around $80,000, above the city median, came close but not close enough. The seller reduced the price to $325,000, then below $310,000. Nothing changed. Buyers toured, lenders denied. One offer arrived at $280,000 with closing cost requests. Accepting would have meant a loss on a home purchased only a few years earlier. The seller declined. By midsummer, the home sat unsold after 150 days, listed below $300,000. Still, no qualified buyers. Orlando sellers are facing a psychological shock. Their market was not supposed to fail. Inland was supposed to mean safe. But Florida insurance does not price risk city by city. It prices the state as a whole. Orlando did not escape the crisis. It absorbed it. Number 3. Tampa. Tampa went from one of the hottest markets in America to one of the coldest in under 3 years. A seller listed a home in January 2025 for $445,000. Showings came, offers did not. Insurance quotes of $18,000 to $26,000 annually killed deals. Buyers compared Tampa to Charlotte and other markets with similar jobs and amenities, but insurance under $2,000 annually. Price cuts followed. $415,000, then $395,000, then $365,000. Still no offers. One institutional investor offered $300,000 cash. The seller declined. By July, the home was listed at $345,000, $100,000 below the original price. By September, after 240 days, the seller accepted a $310,000 cash offer. After costs, they walked away with roughly $5,000. Tampa's owner-occupant market collapsed. Only cash investors remain. Number 2. West Palm Beach. West Palm Beach sellers believed their upscale market would shield them. Strong schools, cultural amenities, refined dining, and proximity to Palm Beach without ultra-luxury pricing. Homes priced between $500,000 and $700,000 should attract affluent buyers. Instead, West Palm Beach proved that premium markets cannot escape insurance math. One seller listed a home in March 2025 for $650,000. Updated kitchen, pool, excellent location. The seller expected multiple offers. Days passed with none. Showings occurred, the home showed well, no offers materialized. Insurance quotes between $24,000 and $34,000 annually eliminated the buyer pool. Buyers with $180,000 household incomes could qualify for the mortgage, but total costs broke the math. Insurance at $28,000 annually, property taxes at $1,600 monthly, HOA at $400 monthly meant fixed costs of $4,333 before the mortgage. Add a $3,500 mortgage payment, and total housing costs exceeded $7,800 monthly. Comfortable qualification required income around $220,000. That narrowed the buyer pool to a tiny fraction. Price reductions followed, $595,000, then $550,000. Still, no offers. One offer arrived at $475,000 with requests for insurance credits. The seller rejected it immediately. It represented a $175,000 drop in 3 months. By September, the home sat at 180 days on the market, listed at $525,000. The seller had purchased it in 2021 for $620,000. Selling meant losses between $120,000 and $170,000. Holding meant bleeding $5,000 monthly. West Palm Beach sellers are learning that affluent buyers have choices. Georgia, Tennessee, the Carolinas offer similar lifestyles with insurance costs of $2,000 to $4,000 annually. Premium pricing cannot survive irrational ownership costs. Number 1. Miami. Miami sellers believed premium demand would always exist. Global buyers, international wealth, aspirational appeal. Instead, Miami froze. A home listed in February 2025 for $750,000 received no offers. Price cuts followed. $700,000, $650,000, $595,000, $550,000. Insurance rates of $30,000 to $40,000 annually destroyed qualification. Buyers compared Miami to Atlanta, Charlotte, and Nashville, where insurance costs $2,000 to $3,000.
One investor offered $475,000. The seller rejected it. By October, the home sat listed at $525,000 after 220 days. Miami's aspirational premium collapsed under insurance math.
Final take. This is not a price correction. It is a transaction failure. Prices can fall 30% and still not produce buyers because insurance costs do not fall with prices. Mortgage qualification fails regardless. The market splits. Cash investors buy at deep discounts. Owner-occupants disappear. This is not about negotiating price. It is about whether transactions are even possible anymore. Florida did not cool. It froze.